our sticky mat because I'm going to do some stenciling on the background and I want to be able to hold my card in place. So I'm just going to grab a piece of cardstock. Now, what did I do with that? You know, I try to be so organized and have all the things out, but then I move stuff around and, oops, here it is. I have a little sleeve. This is one of those Hero Arts envelopes, and I have panels cut ahead of time, and I just keep pulling those out. And then when I start to get low on those, I just fill that little sleeve back up, and that way I kind of have everything ready to go. So I'm just going to put this right down on my sticky mat there, and that's just an A2 size panel. Okay, and I'm using the Nina 80-pound white cardstock. So we sell that in a 10-pack, and I do all my ink blending on that. I don't use it for coloring with alcohol markers. I find this paper is a little bit tricky for that. It tends to have my markers bleed out past the line, just the way that it absorbs the ink. I know it can be used, but it's not my favorite to use. So, but I do love it for ink blending. So that's just an A2 size panel. And I'm going to start with the this card here. And I'm going to start with that Sunshine Burst. So if you don't have a Sunshine stencil in your stash, it's a good one. The one I'm using is the Lawn Fawn Sunray. It's a great little stencil to create those bursts of sun rays. Now I'm going to start this about, I don't know, an inch or so up from the bottom of the card, and just have that burst coming out of the middle. Now, when I say it's an inch or so up from the bottom of the card, I mean the very bottom of my stencil, not the burst itself. Okay, and this will hold, the sticky mat will hold my stencil in place and my paper in place. But what it's not going to hold in place are these. So if I'm using a traditional blending brush on this and doing this, these can move back and forth like this, and you can get ink underneath those lines. So what I like to do with stencils like this is to use a pouncer. So a paper pouncer, these are Picket Fence Studios. This is the regular size paper pouncer. They also come in petite paper pouncers as well. You can get the rainbow packs, or you can get individual pouncers in white, and they come in like a 3-pack. So you don't have to get a full set if you don't want to. I like the full set, so you can have one for each color family. But they do have other options too. And then I'm going to use this to apply the yellow in that burst that you see on this card. So I'm using the colors that Amanda used in her sample. So she's using Concord and 9th Sunflower for the yellow and Harbor for the light blue. And then she's using Pink Fresh Olive for the green. Now that is a good way to show you that all of the ink companies play nicely together when you're using the dye inks. So if there's colors in Gina K that you like, and then colors that you like in Concord and 9th, and then colors that you like in Tailored, you can mix and match those brands together and they still work really nicely together. So some customers really like to have one ink brand and they just kind of run with that, but not like one ink brand doesn't have every color you need. They all have holes in them where there's like, you know, they need a few more greens or they need a few more yellows or something. So don't be afraid to reach out to another company and pull in some of their inks to mix and match them together, because that's okay to do. All right, so I'm going to pull in the sunflower and I am going to pounce the yellow rays using that. So I am going to put a little ink on here and then pounce off a little, because I can always add more ink, but I can't take it away. And I'm going to focus on the center part right here. I want my most intense color to be in that part, and I'm simply going to pounce. And I'm keeping the pouncer on the stencil. I'm not going down here. If you do get some down there, it's not a big deal, because we're going to be stenciling the green down there later anyways, and you can stencil over it. But you want to make sure that you get your most intense color at the bottom, and then start pouncing out and letting it get lighter. Okay. So that's the kind of effect that I am going for when I do this. And you're not going all the way to the top. You're only going to go up about to here. Okay, so you're going to leave that top part open. So because we're going to make a sky with this as well. Not this stencil, but we're going to make a sky for our scene. And we want to have room to do that. So I'm really letting it kind of fade out towards the top. And keeping that most intense color at the bottom. Okay, so kind of something like that. And then we're going to remove that stencil. And we have that burst. Now, that's not where we're going to stop though. If you look at Amanda's card, she doesn't have any white showing in between the rays. So this is where we're going to come in with a different kind of blending brush. And we're going to blend that in. So I'm going to pull in the 1-inch brushes from Pink Fresh, which by the way, they have arrived. We just don't have them unpacked yet. So keep your eyes peeled for these because they're going to be coming soon in the next day or so. And we ordered a lot. So if you have not invested in any of these yet, oh my gosh. So now I'm going to take this and I'm really going to I'm just putting a tiny bit of ink on my brush and I'm, you know, sort of taking it off there. And I'm going to go in with a very light hand and just start blending over top of the rays that I've already done. Now I'm focusing down here at the bottom first, because that again is where I want most of my intense color to be. And then again, it'll fade out a little bit lighter towards the top. So pretty easy to do. And these brushes make it so easy to do this kind of blending on a big area with no brush marks. It's just smooth and even. And you'll see me going back to my ink pad to pick up more color. And I just keep blending, blending, blending. In a couple of recent videos, I've been telling people that most of us, me included at times, tend to overload our brushes with ink. And all that does is make your brushes fill with ink and get nice and crusty. I guess there's nothing really wrong with it, but it's not necessary. You really should be trying to build up the color as you create rather than going back to your ink pad and filling your brush with ink. So just keep blending on there until it's nice and smooth. So I'm pretty happy with how that looks. So we're going to stop there for now with this color. And then we're going to do our grass stencil along the bottom of this. So I'm just going to clean this yellow off my mat here so I don't contaminate with another color. Okay, so now we're going to come in with the green and a grass stencil. So we sell the Tailored Expressions Set the Scene stencils for grass, clouds, mountains, and I think waves. And they are a set of 3 stencils that have different edges on them for clouds. Now, it's nice to have different edges because when you're making a scene, I know this one's clouds. I'm just showing you the design. I don't have the grass ones in this design. I already had a grass stencil and I don't feel the need to buy another one just to have this design. So, but this is what we have in stock now and this is what we sell the most of. So you'll get different grass edges, which is nice because you can mix and match them together and get really nice scenes. So I brought my cloud ones out to show you that. I am using the MFT Grassy Edge stencils. So this is a similar product. Rather than having individual stencils, it's just 4 different sides of grass, and each side is a different configuration. So that's the difference between them. We just don't have this one anymore. We carry the Set the Scene edges. So they're quite nice to use. And I just wanted to point out that's what you're looking for when you shop. So when I put this on, I am actually going to be covering up part of the sun, and we're going to be stenciling over that. But I'm going to try to make kind of a more hilly scene. So I'm going to start off to the one side with this. Okay, so I'm kind of focusing on this. I'm not going to, when I stencil, I'm not going to go all the way down to this edge here. I'm really going to focus on this section right here. So this part of the inking, we're going to be using the Olive Pink Fresh ink, and I'm coming in with a different kind of blending brush. Because I want to intensify the color right along the area where these spikes are and make that darker and then be able to fade the color out. That is a lot harder to do with a really big brush like this. So I'm going to switch it out, and I'm going to go with my Altenew brushes that are like these little stubby ones. They're my favorite. They are kind of my everyday blending brush that I use for a lot of different kind of things. They're the one that I use the most when I'm doing big stenciling like this. So I'm going to take some ink, and I'm going to really focus on the edge of the grass, right where that spiky part is. And I'm really going to try to intensify the color in that area. So you'll see me picking up more ink because I want it much darker here. And I'm kind of covering up that sun that we stenciled on there when we did our sunshine stencil. And again, I said I'm not coming all the way down here. So you can see how it's nice and green along the tips there. That's exactly what I'm going for. And then once I kind of get that part done, I'm going to lift my stencil. Now you can turn it and use a different edge, but I'm going to actually kind of slide it over and have this kind of overlap a little bit. And still, I got to come up high enough that I'm going to hit that sun. Okay, so now we're going to lay that down there, and I'm going to do the same thing over here. So I'm going to come to the edge, I'm going to intensify that inking here, and I'm going to bring it overlapping the area here, but I'm not going to come way down in this section. And that's the fun thing about building a scene, is you can kind of play around with the look that you want. Just by angling your stencils, the edge stencils in a different direction, you get a different look. So if your grass stencils don't have a hill, you can kind of move them and make them have a hill. So I'm going to come down, and I'm going to intensify this section right here. But I'm being very careful not to hit the edge there. Okay, so now I'm going to lift this up, and already you can kind of see where you're getting dark and light shades to create those hills, which is really fun to do. And then I'm even going to add just a wee little bump down here. Okay, so that's going to finish off our grassy section with the spikes. The grass and the clouds are a lot of fun to do with these edges, or mountains or waves or anything like that, because you can build your scene just with ink. Okay, so there we go. We've got that done. So now we're going to lift this up, and you can see how I've got those sort of rolling hills and intensified sections. Now you can see that I've got white in there. So that's where I'm going to switch over to this brush. Now I'm going to take my paper off of this mat. I find the bristles on the Pink Fresh brushes want to stick to that sticky mat, and I don't want that to happen. So I'm going to simply pick up some green, and I just want to lightly fill in those white areas. I don't want to blend the ink too much that I lose those intense areas of spiky grass, but I don't want really white areas showing at the bottom either. So you can just sort of fill in that grassy area like so. Okay, so now we have the rolling grassy hills, and we have the rays of sun coming up from the background. So we need a sky, and I did think about doing a cloudy sky, but I didn't want it to be too busy. And I like how Amanda just did the blue in the top. So you could pull out your cloud stencils at this point, and you could do clouds at the top. But like I said, I feel like it has the potential to get a little bit too busy. So I decided not to go that route. I was going to try it and demo it, but then I thought, well, I really want to use this panel, so I'm not going to. And now we're just going to do some simple ink blending on the top with the Harbor ink from Concord and Night, and one of these big 1-inch brushes from Pink Fresh. And again, I'm just going to take some ink, and I'm just going to come in from the top and start hitting the edge of that paper. So your ink is going to automatically catch the edge and make it just a little bit darker. Kind of come down the side, and then I'm pulling it down where the sun rays pop up. And we're kind of overlapping the colors there. Now, if you go down too far in, you're going to start to get green, because blue and yellow, when you mix it together, you end up getting green. So you don't want to come down too far. You just want to kind of cover up that yellow. And then you end up with a panel that looks like this. And that creates sort of your backdrop. And now you can go ahead and build your scene on top of that, which is a lot of fun to do. So again, on days when you are feeling crafty but not creative, you could sit down with your stencils and create some backgrounds that are going to be all ready to go when you want to create some scenes. And with spring coming and summer coming, you can definitely have a lot of fun with this. So if you've got stamps and dies that have flowers or even little pieces of grass like these, you can layer them on top of this, and that's where you can start building up dimension and things like that. So it's a really cool, cool option for scene building. So the other thing I did was I jumped into my stash and I pulled out some cloud dies, because I don't have clouds stenciled on there, but that doesn't mean that you can't put clouds in your sky in the form of die cuts, and you can pop them up and give them dimension that way. So this die set here has 2 clouds in it. This is sold out right now. We've had this a lot of times, but if you don't have a nice cloud set, it's a good one. This one is from Tailored Expressions, and it's called Rainbow Cloud Duo, and one of them has piercing on it and one of them is plain. So it's a fun one to have in your stash for sure. And I can show you what those clouds look like. So there's the pierced one and there's the plain one. So that's very fun. And there's lots of times when you can use this sunburst. Now, if you want, if you feel like you want those rays of the sun to kind of come up into the blue a little bit more, you can certainly put your panel back onto your sticky mat and then layer that stencil back on there and kind of line it up. You have to kind of pull it up until it sort of matches the design you have. I'm just going to sort of stick that on. I'm not going to add any more ink to my pouncer, but you can take this and kind of just pounce a little bit with the leftover ink that's in your brush over top of that blue that you stenciled on, just really lightly. And you can see how that can pull the lines up over top of the blue and just extend them up a little bit further if you want to. And it really kind of, they just sort of fade out. So that is another way to just kind of extend it. But better to do that after you do the stenciling for the sky, rather than trying to, you know, stencil lightly over top of the rays. Unless you've done it really heavily to start with, I find that part works the best that way. So see what I mean? You can easily add some clouds on there. And I'm just thinking of all kinds of sets that I have in my stash. Everything from the Lawn Fawn book release. You could have the critters sitting outside reading books. You can have that treat cart that they came out with. You can build a whole scene that looks like a park. Hero Arts has had die cuts where they have park benches. And I've got sets that have like farms, like, you know, farm animals. And like there's just tons of stuff that you could use scenes like this for. So I think it's a good little skill set to have for sure. And that worked out really nicely. So thanks for the inspiration, Amanda, because I really wanted to try that and I wanted to show how we do it. Now, the other card that really inspired me was this one. I love these spots that you can create on your cards as focal points. And you can create scenes, little scenes in each section. So you can make as many of these as you want, as many that can fit on. You can make them any size that you want. In this case, we're using a die set that is called... they're dotted nested sets from Waffle Flower. So they come in rectangles, squares, circles, and I think there's a diamond one as well. I have the circles and the rectangles. They are so fun to use. So here is a card I dug out from my stash, and you can see how the rectangles look. You can just kind of box something in and frame it to make it a focal point on your card. So that's what the rectangles can look like. I mean, they come in lots of different sizes, like I showed right here. So it's a nesting set. So you get lots of different sizes. You can make 2 rows of them using back-to-back dies to make like a double frame if you want to. So you can do all kinds of fun things with them. But I love how Amanda used them to make spots on her card to fill in. And then she did create a little scene inside the spot. So I went ahead and cut out my panel ahead of time, just so you can see what it would look like to start with. And all I did was take the circles from this circle set, and you just sort of pick a set and place it on your background, kind of where you want it to go. Sort of tape it in place and then run it through your machine. Now, this die has a lot of little circles, and what happens is the circles stick in the dies. All of the circles actually popped out of my panels, no problem. But in the die itself, I kept one with all the circles in it. There's all kinds of circles stuck in there. So you could take a piercing tool and pop them all out. But I was telling you about the tool-in-one. Now, my tool-in-one is old. The one we have is from Spellbinders, and it's white. But it's the same concept. So you can take this on a foam mat, and you can just simply run this tool over the die, and all of the little pieces that get stuck in there just pop right out. Easy peasy. And if your mat is big enough, we just got a new 12 by 12 one in, so it works really nice. I'm trying to tell myself I don't need it, but I kind of think I do. But all my circles are out now, and then I can just take this to my garbage can and tap it off, and then all of these little circles go in the garbage. So it works really nice for the postage collage dies, where you're getting all the circles, and then any dies like this where you get lots of little pieces and they get stuck in the dies. It works really nicely to get them all out. So if you don't have a tool like that, that's something to add to your collection as well. But I wanted to show you kind of how you can build a similar scene with these little circles as well. Now, there's nothing with these dies to kind of mask off the outside area, so you kind of have to be a little bit careful while you're doing it. In my mind, if the scene was a little bit inside the circle, or if it happens to go a little bit outside the circle, I wouldn't be really upset about it, but you kind of have to decide that. So same concept as before. This particular time, Amanda only used the blue for the sky and the grass for the ground. So you can do a very similar thing as what we did last time, but you do have to keep in mind that you are staying inside the circles. So depending on the type of brush that you're using, for example, this one, you might find yourself blending outside that circle really easily. So you might want to be mindful of that. And that's where those smaller brushes come into play. And I'm also removing quite a bit of ink because I am going to really target, I probably should have done my sky first, really target an area. I could even go with a smaller brush, but less ink on the brush makes it a little easier too. You're not going to go outside of that circle area. I might have to intensify this afterwards, but we'll see. But pretty easy to do. Again, my inking is going to get lighter as it gets away from the stencil, which is good because you want to intensify that line that goes across. So there you can see I've got the grass kind of blended in there, and you can add another layer over here, depending on what you want to do. I'm going to add a little bit of a layer because I don't have to worry about the edge so much over here. Whoops, my stencil moved. So this is kind of creating a bit of a hill. So depending on the kind of scene that you want to do, it might, you might not want as much of a hill. Sorry, I got all involved stenciling there. I forgot to talk. That happens. Okay, so now I've created like another hill. So you can see how you got the two layers there. So that looks pretty cute. And then I'm just going to come in simply with my larger blending brush, and I'm just going to fill in the skyline with this. And again, I'm sort of focusing on the middle and letting, see when I turn, see how the brushes come out close to the edge? I'm trying to make sure that I don't go outside of the circle with my brush. And it is a little harder to do with a large brush. But even if, you know, most of the blue is here and it fades out as it gets close to the edges, that's okay. But you can certainly bring in a smaller brush. Now I'm just going very lightly because some of the bristles are going outside of the lines. But still very doable. And then by the time you get your critters and things on top of that, it's going to fill in quite nicely. So Amanda used a much smaller brush when she did her scene, so she was able to get a little bit closer. I'm going to try, but I don't want to go way over. And I'm kind of using my fingers to sort of hold the brushes a little bit And you want to make sure you come down enough that you're kind of overlapping that grass a little bit too, because that's where the ground ends and the sky starts. Okay, so kind of something like that. And then we do the same thing with the top one. So I'm going to actually do my sky first. So that way I can kind of do the whole section. Now, as long as I stay inside this circle and don't go off the paper too much, these brushes work okay. But when they catch the edge of the sticky mat, they want to grab it. So whatever they're made of, they really want to grab that sticky mat. So I'm trying to sort of stay focused. So you could do something like this with squares too, or rectangles even. You could have like a rectangle coming here and then a smaller one at the top. So if you don't have circles and you only have rectangles, you can do something like that. So a little bit more on here. Not looking too bad. All right, and now I'm going to come in with that green to do my edge. So you can see I kind of did it backwards from the one below, but it still works. And this time I'm going to have my hill go out towards the other way. So I'll come in with my smaller brush again and really focus on the edge of that stencil. That's where you want to intensify the color. Be careful not to go outside the lines if you can. And turn your brush in different directions so that you can pick up the edge of the stencil a little bit different. So that turned out good. And this time I'm going to have my hill coming off to this side because I think it will balance nicely. Probably should have started up further and then worked my way down, but I'm being very careful with my ink blending that I keep most of the dark color against the edge of the stencil so that I don't blend too much that this line sort of disappears. And I'm just lightly filling in that area so it doesn't have that white spot there. And I'm just pointing out too about my sticky mat here. You can see how I like it to be outside of my MISTI, outside of anything. I don't want it sticking to my glass mat. I want to be able to rotate this around and move it where I want to move it. To me, that's very important. Okay, so now we're going to pull this off and you can see how we've created two little spots where we can create scenes. So isn't that fun? I love it. So a couple different ideas for you to create different types of backgrounds for scene building. What do you guys think? Did you learn anything fun? I just love them just like this. They just look so cool. Now you can take your dies, like your rectangle dies, your scalloped rectangles, like all those kinds of things, and you can cut these panels down and give them a decorative edge once your stenciling is done. So that might, you know, cut a little bit more of this scene off of here. You know, you might lose a little bit of the circles along the bottom here, but that's okay. Just kind of, you know, again, how it's going off the page here, it will just go off the page down here. Or you can position it so that you can move it down a little bit and you'll cut a little bit more off the top depending on what you want to do. But if you don't want to leave them as plain, straight-edged rectangles, you can do whatever you want with them for making them into panels. So I hope you learned something fun. I always like to try to demo something. But yeah, these are so fun. So if you don't have a grass stencil or a sunburst stencil, definitely look them up on our online store. You want to get the Set the Scene grass from Tailored Expressions because those will be the straight strips like I showed you with the clouds. You'll just get different grass edges. And then we have lots of the Lawn Fawn Sunray stencil in stock right now too. And that's a really fun one because you can use this on scrapbook layouts as well. We actually used that on our one calendar page last year. So lots of potential for sure. But I love how these are looking. It kind of makes me want to just make cards tonight. I should play hooky from my jobs. You know, I could sit here and just upload videos, and while they're uploading, I could create, right? That's a thing. So I'd still be working, but playing at the same time. We'll see how it goes. Anyways, I hope you learned something fun. And like I said, this video will live on our Facebook page for 30 days, but I'm going to take this segment and I'm going to transfer it over to our YouTube channel. So you can watch it on our Facebook page for 30 days and then this segment on our YouTube channel forever. Woo! Excuse me. All right. Anyways, that's it for today. We will see you again soon.